Okay, I'll call to order the September 5th, 2017 meeting of the Arvada Planning Commission. Ms. Brown, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Jenny Wolfschlag, Michael Griffith, David Goff.
Present.
T.O. Owens.
Present.
Patricia Connell. Here. Doug McGee.
Here.
Steve Hannon.
Here.
I'll move that we excuse Mr. Griffith and Ms. Wolfschlag. All members, please vote. Rob, can you, how do I lock Michael?
Oh, just tap his name.
Got it. Perfect. Yes. All right, they are excused 5-0. The minutes of August 22nd, 2017 have been submitted for approval. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? No. Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as printed. We have no general business and no reports, so we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, anyone who wishes to address the Commission regarding items that are not listed as public hearings on tonight's agenda can please be heard. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak about anything that's not on our agenda tonight? Thank you. At this time, I'll explain the procedure for the public hearings. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation, and after that presentation, I will ask those in favor of the applicant to speak, then those in opposition to speak. The applicant will then be given an opportunity for rebuttal. After all testimony has been heard, the public input portion of the hearing will be closed, and questions will be taken from the Planning Commission. I'd like now to swear in anyone who wishes to speak tonight. If you wish to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in matters before this commission are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please answer, I do. Thank you. All right. So the first case we'll hear tonight is, if I can get to it, Begg Industries annexation, and that's AN 2016-001, and the rezoning. Is the applicant present? Yep. Staff, are there any posting or notification requirements?
Yes, there are. There are three. One is required to be posted in the local newspaper. That was done so on August 25th, 2017. The applicant is required to mail notices of the hearing to all property owners within 400 feet of the subject property, and a sign is required to be posted on the subject property. Staff has received the posting log and mailing affidavit.
Thank you. We'll make those a part of the permanent record. Is the staff prepared to give us a summary of the case?
Yes.
Thank you.
The applicant, Craig Romery, is requesting to annex approximately 0.5 acres of land from unincorporated Jefferson County to incorporated Arvada. The applicant is also proposing to rezone the property from Jefferson County C1 to City of Arvada I1 for light industrial warehouse. The comprehensive plan designates this area as industrial and office. The applicant's proposed I1 zoning district for light industrial conforms with the future land use designation of the comprehensive plan. Additionally, the applicant's conceptual plan appears to conform with the development standards for the I1 district per the Arvada Land Development Code. At this time, the applicant has not submitted a site plan for staff review. However, the applicant will be required to do so prior to the issuance of the first building permit. Staff would like to amend approval condition number 2 found on page 11 of the staff report, which requires in fee simple dedication of land and easements necessary to the city, as well as constructing necessary public improvements prior to the issuance of the first building permit. Staff would like to keep the same language but change the timeline for the improvements from prior to the first building permit to shall be determined by staff upon site plan submittal. The timeline for exactly when the public improvements need to be installed will be incorporated into the final development agreement prior to the site plan approval. Based on staff findings, staff recommends approval of the annexation and rezoning subject to condition number 1 and amended condition number 2.
Thank you. Sir, would you please give us your name and address and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Craig Romary, R-O-M-A-R-Y, with Romary Architects. The address is 3622 Zuni Place, Suite B, Sedalia, Colorado, 80135. Phone number is 303-688-5588.
Thank you very much. Please continue with your presentation.
Actually, Will has pretty much done the presentation. I want to thank him, first of all, and Rob Smetana. This little strange piece of property has been in unincorporated Jefferson County and not part of the city of Arvada for a long time. The owner that I represent has recently purchased that piece of property, and in hopes of putting in a small I-1 office warehouse building, which is compatible with the properties adjacent on basically all sides. If you have any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but Will, in his endeavor, has gone ahead and certainly for the code improvement criteria, listed the annexation approval criteria under A, B, C, and D. All complies, and also has listed the rezoning application criteria under A, B, C, D, and E as yes. I think we comply with everything that has been asked of us, at least to date, from the city of Arvada. We are planning and have started the site improvement and site plan process. We just got a little behind, and the owner was a little behind in giving us the signed contract and the go-ahead to do so. So that is why we are kind of separating the annexation and rezoning at this time. But we are under process with the start of the site plan.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the hearing for comments for members of the public. Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against this case? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'll now open the hearing for discussion from members of the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much.
All right. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that ANN 2016-0001 Beg Industrial Annexation located at 4927 Allison Street be recommended to City Council for approval, subject to the conditions stated in the staff report, items 1 and 2, page 11. The motion is based on the findings of fact and approval criteria on pages 9 and 10 of the staff report.
I think we have to have the amended.
Amended?
As amended by the staff.
As amended by the staff. Thank you.
All right, is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all members please vote. There are 5 yeses and 0 noes. That motion passes. Mr. Goff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Z2017-0002 Beg Industrial rezoning from Jefferson County C1 Commercial to City of Arvada L1 Light Industrial located at 4927 Allison Street be recommended to City Council for approval. This motion is based on the findings of fact and approval criteria on page 10 of the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all members please vote. There are 5 yeses and 0 noes. That motion passes. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So do we want to run the comments as they get up, or do you want to start?
This is All right, the next case we'll hear is PDP 2017-003 Wildgrass Commercial. Is the applicant present? Would you please come to the podium? Let's see. Are there any postings or mailings from the staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the applicant was required to send notices to adjacent homeowners and the association, and they provide an affidavit of mailing verifying that they met that. They also posted signs on the property, and they've also submitted a posting log that is in order, and the city printed in the local newspaper.
Thank you very much. We'll make the staff report, posting log, and affidavit a part of the permanent record. And are you prepared to give a summary of this case?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much.
Okay. United Properties LLC is requesting approval of a preliminary development plan for a 3-lot neighborhood commercial development within the Wildgrass subdivision, known today as Whisper Creek. The 6.4-acre PDP consists of 2 lots, actually 3 lots, but 2 is part of the PDP. Lot 1 is proposed for a 3,000 square foot convenience store building with 6 fuel dispensers on that side. Lot 2 is proposed for a 2,220 square foot coffee shop with a drive-through service. And Lot 3 is platted as a 3.9 acre lot proposed for a future self-storage, which has been submitted for on a separate PDP, and that is not part of this PDP that we're looking in tonight. The PDP does include water, sewer, stormwater improvements, and a buffer treatment to serve the development located on all 3 lots with this PDP. The applicant will be constructing all those construction improvements. And also there is a minor subdivision plat that is being reviewed administratively to create the 3 lots for this development.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, no. I do have one thing. Can I just add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Staff recommends, after performing an analysis of the proposal and a review of the Land Development Code approval criteria, we are in support of the application. Recommends approval.
Thank you. Would you please give us your name and your address and spell your last name for the record?
Alicia Reimer, R-H-Y-M-E-R, 6827 Poppy Court, Arvada, Colorado.
Thank you very much. Would you please tell us about your case?
Yeah. So my name's Alicia Reimer. I'm the Vice President of Retail for United Properties, and I'm also an Arvada resident and live in the Westwood community. So I'm professionally and personally excited to be here tonight to give you guys present our development. So I think we all know we're talking about the northeast corner of 87th and Indiana. We're looking at the 6 acres in addition to the remaining parcel where the Goddard School currently is. I think it's important to go through the history of the site. In 2004, Mountain Shadows Annexation, Rezoning, and Outline Development Plan was approved, and this was annexed into the city. And at that time, the site was zoned PUD BP. In 2006, there was an FDP and final plat approved, and zoning remained future commercial. In 2009, the Goddard PDP was approved, and at that time, it indicated that we would break this into 3 future parcels, and there would be 3 buildings proposed, 2 being along Indiana Street, and 1 larger office retail being back in Lot 3. And so our proposal tonight is consistent with the original PDP that was approved back in 2009. 2011, the FDP was approved and construction commenced for the Goddard facility. And then in 2013 and 2014 is kind of when the residential component came on the eastern property line and the townhomes were constructed. Our zoning is PUD BP, and so our proposed uses, gasoline convenience store, as well as a quick serve restaurant with drive-through, are permitted uses in PUD BP. The comp plan designation was also to have this be neighborhood community commercial, and that was intending to provide retail services, personal services to serve the neighborhood and the community in the area. So we feel that our development is not only are they permitted uses, but it meets the intent of the comp plan designation. just wanted to dive in a little bit more on the 7-Eleven piece and the Starbucks piece. So this is a perspective from the intersection looking northeast, from Indiana, looking northeast towards the residential community. And the 7-Eleven will be a 3,000 square foot gasoline convenience store with 6 dispensers and 12 fueling stations. A deeper dive into this, we've really done an enhanced architecture to try to fit into the overall community. Some of the exciting things about this overall development, they do a co-branding program with ConocoPhillips. So the building will be 7-Eleven, image 7-Eleven, but the canopy will be showing Phillips 66. So they're actually selling a branded fuel out of this particular location, and they will have 2 diesel pumps, which I think is a great community or value add to the community with all the horse farms and the rural trucks and everything that we have in the area. Branded fuel and diesel is a priority to these folks, so I think this is a good add to the overall community that we currently don't have. 7-Eleven also gets daily delivery, so outside of just being a gas station, they're a convenience store first. And so every day, fresh donuts, fresh salads, sandwiches, those types of products, milk come into the store. They have a refrigerated food product section where they sell eggs and milk and cheese and the basics that you need to get on your morning or your evening home, on your way home from the evening if you don't want to battle getting into King Soopers. And they have quite a product selection inside the store. So great convenience add to the community for the folks that just want to get in and get out and get what you need and get on your way. So I'm very excited about what they're going to bring to the overall development. Here's a perspective from Indiana Street entrance looking southeast. As far as the Starbucks, we're looking at a 2,200 square foot Starbucks with a drive-through. So they will have the drive-through that will accommodate the commuter and the person that just wants to get in and get out on their morning commute in or their morning commute home. They'll also have a patio, a pretty extensive patio that'll be out on the west side of the building that will look out over the mountains for people to be able to enjoy their lunch or dinner or coffee. And inside, obviously, they'll have the cafe portion where you can work and hold meetings and so forth. And so I think we all know the nearest Starbucks with a drive-through is at 64th and Ward, and I personally am looking forward to having an additional option to not have to battle that every day. Here's another overhead perspective from the townhomes looking west to southwest. So just giving you some kind of pictures of what this is going to look like. So as a part of the community, as being a part of the community, it was really important to me that this overall development really fit into the community as well as was a value add to the residents. So we held 3 neighborhood meetings with them to really get their feedback and solicit and see, kind of their thoughts and what they thought and just really improve the development as we spoke and met with them. So we met with them originally on March 2nd. I think we had probably 75 to 100 residents in attendance at that time. And we showed them this site plan. It was very concept at this time, just very conceptual site plan, very preliminary grades, didn't have a lot, and just some real rough elevations. And so some of the things that we heard was mountain views being blocked was a huge concern because some of these folks had paid premiums apparently for the mountain view. People walking through their backyards, drainage, lighting, noise, pollution, traffic, proximity to daycare, compatibility with the neighborhood. So we kind of scrubbed off, went back to the drawing board and reoriented some things, moved some stuff around, came back, figured out our landscaping plan, put together perspectives, drive-by videos, and that type of things, and held another meeting on 4/24. I think we had about 35 people in attendance then. So some of the things that we've done is we reoriented the Starbucks building to kind of push it to, the north more, to open up the mountain views and kind of keep that corridor open, as well as be mindful of how we're bringing the cars through the drive-through to the residents and the impacts that may potentially could have. We added enhanced landscaping, and I'll go into that in more detail. And we shifted the proposed building on Lot 3, just kind of shifted that, moved that to the north again to open up view corridors, and started working with the HOA on an eastern property boundary line. We also held a third meeting on 6/26, and that was to really kind of separate and take Lot 3 out of the mix and just dive into 7-Eleven and Starbucks specific concerns. And 7-Eleven was in attendance in that meeting and facilitated questions and concerns and really did what we thought we could to be a better part of the community. So one of the big things that came out was obviously traffic and circulation. So diving into traffic and the circulation, we completed a traffic study that has been approved by the city traffic engineers. And what that did, we did a very conservative analysis, and that took into account existing traffic as well as trip generations or traffic that we would be adding to the overall area when these 3 lots develop. And we did a very conservative analysis, and I say that because it's well known that gasoline convenience stores and quick serve drive-through restaurants are considered what we call convenience users. And so generally they serve the pass-through traffic that is already there, so they don't add additional traffic to the area. They're serving the densities that are already there. So normally you get an 80 to 90% credit on your pass-through traffic. We didn't apply any of that. So we did a very conservative analysis, and based off of that, we feel, and we've worked with city staff, that the infrastructure that we're proposing and the access points will work and will work well. So we're proposing we're going to build out Indiana to the full build out on the eastern side, the entire length of our property. So we're adding an additional lane. We're proposing a right-in, right-out access point off of Indiana, and what that does is it allows us to keep Indiana traffic on Indiana Street. That way we're not transferring it into the community along 87th, and there, helps better flow throughout the development. For 87th, we are proposing, we're going to modify the median in 87th and add a dedicated left turn lane. So that will, during peak hours for that left turn pocket that wants to go into the development that way, we allow cars to kind of get out of the way and stack so that traffic can continue on 87th and not be impacted by anyone that's utilizing the development. Currently, the Goddard facility only has the option of going in 87th, and so now they'll have the option with cross access through the development for them to enter in off of Indiana and exit off of Indiana, which should also help with some of the left turns and traffic that you may be experiencing or the community may be experiencing on 87th. One of the positive things that came out of the meeting, we had a couple of moms and attendants that their kids go to the Goddard facility, and they had concerns about the left turn out to 87th for the eastbound traveler that wants to head back to Whisper Creek. So we thought that was a good point. So what we did is we're widening that access point, the existing 87th access point, and striping and adding a dedicated left turn lane. So if we have that 1 or 2 person that wants to go eastbound on 87th, they can get out of the way and still allow for the other traffic to flow. So all of those things we feel, along with the cross-access that's being provided throughout the development to now the Goddard facility and future connection to any development that may happen to the north, this will be a much improvement to what's currently there today. We're also adding an 8-foot pedestrian walkway all the way connecting to the current existing at 87th and running at the length of Indiana for the pedestrians. As far as like noise, light, different kinds of concerns that the residents had. One of the things that, obviously is in our favor is proximity to the residential community. So distance in itself is quite a bit of a mitigating factor with the residents. So the Starbucks building is over 539 feet. That's to the back of the building to the nearest residence. Back door. The internal drive is 420 feet. The 7-Eleven building is 487 feet, and we're 320 feet from the Goddard facility. So distance in itself is serving as a pretty good, buffer to the residential community from these uses. In addition to that, the buildings themselves are kind of serving as additional mitigation for those types of things. The 7-Eleven's building will in itself buffer the canopy. And so headlights usually travel 160 feet in total, length. So we can see that we're well beyond that, any impacts that we may have to the residential community. This is just a more detailed section, detail proximity, which just kind of gives you a better look of what it's going to look like. This incorporates the landscaping that I'll go into in a little bit more detail here in a minute. So landscaping and buffering, we really spent a lot of time on this to try to enhance the overall landscaping for the development so we could just soften the curb appeal and make it be more about landscaping and buildings as you're coming down Indiana Street, as well as buffering from the residential community. So we used landscaping in a lot of ways to address their concerns. So code requires 25% of your site to be landscaped. We're actually exceeding that on each lot. We're at 27.5% on both lots. That doesn't include additional landscaping that we added that was not required by code. We're proposing 8 trees along Indiana Street and 9 trees along 87th Street. And we have 52 trees in total just for the Starbucks and 7-Eleven. That does not include when Lot 3 develops, there will be more trees added to the development when that develops. So we have a lot of trees. 45 more shrubs than what's required by code that we added as well. And then we strategically located these plantings throughout the development so that we could mitigate any paving noise, trash that may, and debris that may blow that wouldn't be contained by the dumpster enclosures that we're providing on the site. So one thing that we did is behind the 7-Eleven building there on the east side of it, you can see that extensive landscaping area that we've added. That's not required by code. We strictly did that as a mitigating factor to the 7-Eleven convenience store to the residents. And so that we envision will be kind of a community area where people can get their Slurpees or they can get their coffee, maybe go hang out there, sit, enjoy some shade. But what we're proposing in there is quite a bit of shrubs and 5 evergreens that will grow approximately anywhere from 20 to 30 feet in height and 20 feet wide. So that's all additional landscaping. That's a mitigation that we've provided just to kind of help with any of those concerns with the residents. We've also added an additional shrub line behind the convenience store. You'll see that there, and that'll be a shrub like wall basically that will grow to 6 feet tall at maturity. And so the idea was there's a lot of discussion about trash blowing. We all know we get high winds through here. My fence blew down on Christmas Day, so I get it. But that in itself will help capture any trash or any impacts that may be blowing across the site. Those things are our checks and balances of stopping it, even though everything's fully enclosed in a dumpster enclosure and there's operational procedures in place. So we're proposing a 20-foot landscaping buffer between, we're basically going to enhance the existing landscaping buffer between us and the eastern property. And I'll go into that in a lot more detail when we get into the flexing, but 8 evergreen trees, growing 30 feet tall, 20 feet wide, and 23 shrubs that'll grow 5 to 6 feet in height along there, as well as a 5-foot split rail fence that'll run the perimeter of that property. As far as lighting goes, we did an extensive study here, and that's pretty typical for any development that we do, and GE does it for us. And so what you're seeing here is a reflection of the study that was done. Overall site lumens are lower than what the code maximum requires, keeping in mind that City of Arvada's lighting codes are pretty stringent as it is, and we're meeting those. We're actually below the code maximum. Our fixtures are all LED energy efficient, full cutoff with recessed lighting, so they're really focused to light the area that they're intended to light with zero wash, and you can see that here. This is effectively what it will look like at night, and to lower it any less than that would really be, a safety concern. This is a further dive into the photometric lighting study. So basically what this is telling you, where it's green is where the light is concentrated, where it's blue and the darker the blue, it's at 0. So you can kind of see the graph on the side of it, and this just further depicts what I'm saying. This is an actual, those are all lighting studies, but wanted to show you an actual image. So this is a new 7-Eleven at Highway 287 in Uptown in Broomfield, just opened about 6 months ago. These are actually, their lighting standards for Broomfield are much higher than what Arvada allows. So what you're seeing here is brighter than what will actually be for this particular site. But this is me standing 15 feet from the curb line. You can see that it's pitch black. And so we have a 20-foot landscaping buffer on this site. So it'll be black in the front and it'll be completely dark behind the 7-Eleven building for the residents. So there really is no lighting concerns or impacts to the overall residential community. Architectural compatibility was kind of a big thing that it was important that we fit into their overall community. So there's a picture of the existing Goddard facility and some of the homes in the area. And so we really put a lot of thought into the design. We tried to keep flat roof lines so that we could keep the buildings kind of low into the ground and not a lot of height to them to preserve the view corridors for everybody as well. If you add a pitched roof to a building this small, it starts to look really funny. So we really pulled in the elements out of the existing, architecture. So we went with faux wood, which really tried to tie in with the pergolas and some of the wood features that are in the overall residential community. We're incorporating the stone base that's wrapped around the bottom that is consistent and matches the Goddard facility. We're putting stone on the canopy columns to tie it into the overall building. doing earth tone colors on the stucco and really picked material and fixtures that we feel fits into the overall community, and was very supported by staff. So I just want to take a minute to go into, we are meeting all of the PDP approval criteria according with the staff, and so just wanted to go into a few of the flexing items and justification for why we're flexing. We are requesting a flex from the maximum. You guys have Article 5, the LDC limits max of pump islands to 4. Fuel projection analysis that's done by both ConocoPhillips and 7-Eleven, as well as their prototype standards and national fuel standards, really show that 6 dispensers is more adequate here, and it allows for 12 fueling stations. And that's consistent with what we see. King's Supers just got approved with 9. Loaf and Jug on 64th has 5. The My Goods on 64th have 5. So it's pretty typical for most gasoline convenience stores to ask for more than 4 dispensers, and that's to effectively allow for adequate serving of the customer during peak hours. In addition, we're having 2 diesel islands here, so that also helps give 4 regular gasoline convenient pumps. And that goes hand in hand with the vehicle stacking. So we're asking for a flex from the 3-car stack, and as you can see here from the exhibit, we still effectively can stack over 2 vehicles. So that would be 24 plus vehicles at any peak time around the dispensers, and still have adequate flow around the canopy. We have overflow for 3 that can go along the curb line before it backs up, in 70 feet of additional stacking between that last northern car and to the right in, right out access point. So with the 6 dispensers and the 12, those 2 kind of go hand in hand, fueling stations, there really isn't a need for that much more additional on-site stacking. And we're trying to manage not having a sea of paving here. These standards exceed 7-Eleven civil design standards, and more than 280 locations that they've built in the state of Colorado have these same standards and adequately service the customer and function fine. So we're asking from a flex for that. As far as the landscaping buffer on the fence, which is the eastern property line, the PDP for Goddard, just kind of want to give a little bit of a history here on this whole eastern property line. The PDP for Goddard basically stated that the eastern perimeter fence for Lot 2 would be constructed at the start of the residential construction for the east of Lot 2. And then the Wildgrass Amendment number FDP, which was done by Remington, also showed the installation of this perimeter fence along the property line extending north from 87th all the way through this commercial property line. But it was never installed as part of their work. And so this is the eastern property line that goes between our development and the residential. And the reason it wasn't installed is because I think they came to the same conclusion, and from my understanding and talking with staff, that we did. That it really, with the grade challenges that we have between the 2 properties and the drainage swale and the utility easements, it really serves absolutely no purpose. As you can see from the section detail here, Remington gave an additional 20-foot landscaping buffer, so typically they would have been required to do 15. They extended that an additional 20 and gave 35 feet. In lieu of doing the fence. And the reason is a 6-foot masonry fence or masonry columns and regular wooden fence, as you can see from the elevations, would effectively serve no visual purpose. Any resident or anyone in the townhomes will see right over it because of the grades. And there's nothing we can really do about that because it's a drainage swale that leads to a head wall that serves and goes to off-site regional detention. So based off of that, we worked with the HOA, we've walked the site, we've spent a lot of time meeting and discussing what should we do in order to preserve the view corridor and the mountain views that we talked about, as well as prevent pedestrian traffic from kind of going from development to development and dealing with the retaining wall that's there. On the northern property, we were all in agreement that a 5-foot tall split rail fence along this property line makes the most sense with enhanced vegetation. So we are proposing, United Properties is going to come in, we're going to build the fence, the entire length of the property starting after this retaining wall, and we're going to take the existing 20-foot buffer that was given by Remington that never really got established and is kind of a weed bed. We're going to clean that all up, and we're going to put the 5-foot, fence on the entirety, add all this enhanced vegetation, and be done. The cooperation agreement with the HOA is in your packet, and we have since signed a site improvement agreement and temporary construction agreement. I believe they're here tonight to talk about that if necessary. Parking lot interior landscaping requirements. Code requires that there be a landscaping island every 12 parking stalls. We're requesting to be able to do 14 along the front end of the Starbucks there, and that's the only area we're needing to flex. And the reason that we're doing that is so that it doesn't impede ADA access, as well as, it's really operationally challenging to put a landscaping island kind of right in the middle there with snowplow removal, as well as it kind of becomes a trip hazard. So instead, we've overcompensated by doing additional landscaping island wrapping the entirety of the parking row to kind of offset not meeting that 12, and doing 14 on that island. The 5-foot landscape buffer width, code requires a 20-foot landscaping buffer on the north side of the property. As we continually push this access point to Indiana north, we had to squeeze that a little bit, and staff was supportive of that because the adjacent property to the north is unincorporated Jefferson County. And so the idea is when and if that does annex, it'll likely be developed as commercial. They'll get a 10-foot landscaping buffer from them at that time, and we effectively have a 20-foot landscaping buffer between the two properties. So I'm just going to quickly want to show a drive-by video that we've done of what this is going to look like in real time. And this is what it'll look like coming down 87th, heading west. And we are proposing a shared one multi-tenant sign along Indiana Street, and that will be the only signage, in addition to building signage, that will serve the entire development. So no signage will be proposed along 87th. And so I just want to close. We've got our entire team here, the traffic engineer. We're all here to facilitate any questions that you guys may have. But just wanted to wrap up. We believe the development fulfills an immediate need for the community and retail services to support the existing and the future, residential growth that we have experienced and will continue to experience in the city. The city's getting or benefiting from improvements to Indiana and 87th, along with 8-foot sidewalk connection for pedestrians. It's known, and it's said in there, I read in the article of the City of Arvada's magazine the other day that retailers returned 52% of their revenue to the local economy. So it's great to have retailers give back to the community, and these retailers will do that, as I'm sure. Significant sales tax and property tax dollars for the city, permitting and use taxes. They'll pay a significant annual tax contribution to Jefferson Metropolitan County District Number 2, which will go towards future improvements of road and infrastructure throughout the city of Arvada. Additional convenient food options for RV high school students. I've talked to quite a few of them that are really excited about this proposed opportunity because they have open campus lunch, and it's there's very, very few convenient options for them to get to and back in time, so they're pretty excited about something being in their back door. And then obviously strong credited tenant growth. These types of tenants, once they land, more tenants will come and more retailers will come to the area, and I think that's the goal here with all the residential growth that we've experienced. So I'll wrap up. I've taken a lot of your time, but as a resident of the community, I'm really excited about this proposed development and hope that we get your approval this evening. So,
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown, I have a letter from Peggy Wagner to Councilor Jones that I need to enter into the record. I believe all of the commissioners have a copy of that letter. Thank you. I will now open the hearing for comments from the public. First of those in favor, I have Mr. Stensby.
Good evening. I'm well, first of all, David Stensby, S-T-E-N-S-B as in boy, Y, sorry.
Very good, thank you. You're doing my job for me, I
Clean
appreciate
me
it.
up. I live at 9065 Gardenia Street, Arvada 80005. I live in Whisper Creek. I'm also the real estate manager for 7-Eleven. So I basically cover between Colorado from here to Detroit and everything in between. We've got several different real estate reps that represent 7-Eleven in and around the Denver area. And in the next year or so, or by the year 2020, 7-Eleven is looking to grow by 3 to 4 times the amount of convenience store slash fuel stations across the United States. In Denver, Colorado, we're planning on growing here in the next few years at a clip of between 20 and 25 locations in and around the community. So we're really, really excited. 7-Eleven has really turned a corner in the last probably 8 to 10 years from the older 7-Eleven that you probably remember growing up as a kid. Me growing up in Chicago to now a fresh food destination where we have items, especially in Colorado, that are delivered from DIA which is our commissary, on a daily basis. So we are being known as a fresh food destination, going up against the QSRs and quick service restaurants, and excited to build several 7-Eleven C-stores slash fuel facilities with Starbucks. A lot of people think, well, why would Starbucks go with a 7-Eleven? They're kind of competing against each other. It's not necessarily the case. They're barista prepared. We're drip, more bean to cup and things of that nature. We like to go up with some of the QSRs to allow for alternative items. I can tell you, sitting around the Whisper Creek pool in Arvada here, that our neighbors are extremely excited in the single-family homes. Not only folks, as Alicia had mentioned, that go to Ralston Valley, but also just being able to go out and pick up a gallon of milk, at 7 o'clock at night if we run out, etc. I think right now, especially with King Soopers finally being built across the street from us, which we're excited that they're almost housed in there. But right now we either have to go down to 64th in Indiana or go all the way up into up north, up on McCaslin and 36. So everybody's really, really excited. If you're familiar from a fuel station perspective, there are if you go to some of the King Supers that are around the community or the city of Denver, I use the term lightly, but can almost be a gong show trying to get in and out of the fuel stations just based upon the amount of people that are waiting for the pumps, et cetera. So we look at ourselves as a convenience store first and fuel station or fuel second. So we almost look at ourselves as almost a relief valve. And again, we are an interceptor. We are not a traffic creator. So we go where the traffic is, and definitely for this project. And I know that I can probably speak behalf of several of the folks within our community that we're really, really excited about having this project. And I think that United Properties has done a tremendous job in going above and beyond, from buffers to landscaping to appease. And I know that Alicia, being a citizen of Arvada as well as myself, we truly have the look and feel of Arvada in our heart as far as what we really want this to look for. So we're really, really excited about this. So, so definitely for the project.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, sir.
All right.
Bob, by the way, I'll place a bunch of Slurpee coupons outside. I've been handing them out for a couple of weeks now. So.
Thank you. Let's see. We'll start with, that was the only one we had 4. We have a neutral, Mr. Rothschild. If you would, please spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Edward Rothschild, Rothschild, 14358 West 88th Place. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I'll be brief. Generally, I'm supportive of this project. The staff and the developer have been very good to work with and have accommodated many of the concerns that the community has raised. I did want to clarify a few issues. One is, although there was discussion about the fence, it serves a very important purpose, and that is to limit foot traffic and also to clearly delineate between the commercial and the residential areas. One question I would have for the developer, just to verify, the fence goes beyond what was required by the city and extends all the way to 87th. And I'm not sure if that's shown on the drawings or not, so I wanted to have that clarified. There were 2 other issues that I wanted to raise. One was the landscaping. It's a very good landscaping plan. There's been some challenges with the existing developer of Whisper Creek on getting landscaping finalized. So I would request of staff that that be followed through diligently to make sure that the landscaping plan is followed through in a timely fashion, which I'm sure they'll do. And then my final comment is a comment question. Give you a little history on the public meetings. When we first were presented this project as a community, it was clear that it was going to be developed as all 3 properties at once. Later in that process, they split out the area that was intended for storage. And quite frankly, that's probably the most contentious piece of this development. When I read the staff report, the entire area is part of the PDP. Even though they're not addressing the storage area, it's implied within the document that it's intended for storage area. So my request or question would be, why are we including in the PDP all 3 of the lots? Can we limit it to the 2 that are being developed? Or can it be made quite clear that the storage unit development is not a fait accompli, that that's not part of this development process? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rothschild. We'll have those opposed to the application now, starting with Jack Roberts. Sir, if you would give us your name, address, and spell your last name for the record.
Yes, Jack Roberts, 14457 West 88th Place, Unit B, Arvada.
Thank you.
As I'm impacted by the development behind us and wish to see something done to enhance the community and our subdivision and my property at the same time. We're aware of the need for commercial development in this area. This has been planned a long time ago, like 2004 or something, to be commercial development. But understanding that as time goes along, there's maybe changes need to be thought about. Like one of my concerns is I oppose the gas station really going in there. King Soopers will be having a gas station at 92nd and 92nd and Indiana up there, and I heard that there'll be probably another one at the Parkway at 86th. So why do we need 3 gas stations within 6 blocks? That's one reason why I probably oppose it. I think they've done a great job, United Properties, of presenting all of this and doing a good job with it. I guess the meat of the why I would be here opposing is somewhat is on the fence part of it. They talk about putting in a 6-foot split rail fence. My question would be, what is a 6-foot split rail fence? My interpretation of split rail is a log split in half and put up the pictures they're showing is not a split rail fence. So I need a definition of what they're talking about doing. And furthermore, they talk about only maintaining the fence and the landscaping area for a period of 2 years and giving the HOA $10,000. I think this is somewhat of a ripoff. I think the code calls for a solid masonry fence to put back there. And the cost of a solid masonry fence would be considerably more than this wood fence that they're proposing. Plus, they want us to maintain it, take care of it after 2 years. This is not going to sit very well with me and most of the homeowners around. So I think there needs to be some more negotiations on how this fence is done. I'm not totally against this rail fence, but I am against having us to maintain it after 2 years. Enough for the fence. They provided some letters of support, and I kind of dispute some of the letters they've had, and I understand how all that game works. Like one of the people here is Krista Bracken. I mean, she lives at 5991 West 75th. That's 16 minutes or over 7.1 miles from this location. What impact does this have on supporting this? I don't know. And there's a couple other developers, kind of common to get support letters like that. There's another lady that was to the west of there off of Highway 72. When King Soopers is in, she'll be just as close to that service station as she will this service station. A couple questions for the board. There, it's the PPD you're talking about. I agree with what the gentleman said earlier about including all of these 3 sites into one thing. And I kind of don't understand that either, because the storage units are a different thing, and they're going to come up later on. From my understanding, there's already 2 storage units going in Arvada, and another 1 or 2 in the middle to be put up within 4 to 5 miles. Why do we need another storage unit? So I think we need to be looking at this ahead of time, and maybe this might have some impact on what happens to that other lot. The wood part, trim on some of the 7-Elevens. I've been in construction all my life and done a lot of maintenance. I've done a lot of commercial work, and the wood part just doesn't hold up very long at all. And I'm kind of opposed to the finishes they have on the 7-Eleven store, especially for the wood. I need to look at some alternative products that's going to last longer. I appreciate and understand what goes on with all the planning department, what they have to do. They're locked in. They got to give everybody an opportunity to present their case and do what they want. And that's why we have a planning commission here to hear the other side of the story. I just thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from Peggy Wagner. Ma'am, if you could give us your name and address and spell your last name for the record.
Sure. My name's Peggy Wagner. Last name is Wagner. I live at 14457 West 88th Place, Unit C, Arvada, 80005.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. This commercial development's being built in a residential area. No other commercial building except a preschool. I see in the packet that the only letters of support for this residential building are from individuals outside the residential community. I'm concerned about the change it's going to introduce into this neighborhood and the future property values of the neighborhood. As far as comments about providing needed residential services, King Soopers is going to provide the exact same and additional services, so I see this development as somewhat redundant. Here are my concerns. The first and most critical of my concerns is the fence and the barrier. The current code for neighborhood buffer between residential and non-residential calls for visual and noise separation, a 6-foot-high masonry wall or solid fence. Alternate boundary treatments would provide the same or better buffer, but a split rail fence does not provide that. In the spring, the residents were to meet with United Properties along the property line to discuss the fencing. That meeting never happened because of weather and other conditions I'm not aware of. I then received an email from United Properties that they were working with the HOA on the fencing, so we never had a meeting. Subsequently, an agreement was reached with those properties to build a split rail on HOA property, maintained by the HOA. Homeowners were never consulted about this. So I understand there might be a potential grading for this fence, but if the intent is to provide an effective barrier, then there should be a way to do that. If there wasn't an agreement with the HOA, where would the developer build the fence? I believe the developer can engineer a solution to provide an effective, solid barrier or fence that will protect us and provide a barrier from the headlights, the traffic, the noise, and the trash. And I believe they can build it on their property, not the HOA's. A split rail, no matter how tall, is not going to provide those things. If you go into 5 parks, they've got a solid brick wall around their commercial dividing it from their homes. Their homes are up on a hill, and the barrier still provides that rock wall still provides an effective barrier, so that can be done. Trinity Storage, just approved by City Council on Highway 72, has proposed that they will build a 6-foot-tall masonry fence with 60-foot, or every 60 feet, a masonry column. It also faces west, so the wind issue they must have addressed. So if they can do it, I'm not sure why this can't be done on this property. So my concern is not for just when the 7-Eleven and Starbucks goes in, but for the proposed storage. And I know that's not a part of this, but proposed storage is saying there's going to be 181 cars a day into that storage unit. When they turn into that storage unit, the headlight project at 160 feet or whatever that is. As they drive to our townhomes, that 160 feet is going to be close to coming right into our townhomes. We don't have the option at that point to go back and redo the fence now that the storage unit is in. I think the impact is irreversible at that point. With constant traffic, the current entrances and traffic lanes will direct headlights turning into the property right at the bordering townhomes. Our bedrooms, living rooms, kitchens, and dining rooms are all along that eastern border. So as the cars come in, they will shine into our homes, in our main living spaces. Also, the proposed deciduous trees, once those leaves drop in the fall, provide no barrier for that. My other concerns, the lighting, I'm asking that we consider reducing or extinguishing lighting after 10 or 11 p.m. Trash, we're requesting not to have early morning or late evening trash removal from these businesses. Deliveries, I know 7-Eleven says they get a 3 a.m. delivery of fresh food to their store. We're asking that there are no early or late evening deliveries, whether it's food, products for 7-Eleven, Starbucks, or fuel. The signage and the building colors, I noticed on their plan, we had asked that they remove the big 7-Eleven lighted sign letters on the back, same with Starbucks, so we asked that they remove those lights and signage from the east-facing walls of those buildings. And last, unfortunately, crime and loitering seems to occur around convenience stores, not just 7-Eleven. I looked and I found 9 instances in 2017 at convenience stores, mostly 7-Eleven, where there were security issues, crime issues. So I implore you to consider this impact on this neighborhood community and to decline the modification request for a split rail fence and grant the other requests I outlined tonight to make development in this community a little more acceptable to the surrounding community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Ms. Gomez. If you would please state your name and address and spell your last name for the record.
Yes. My first name is Eileen, E-I-L-E-E-N, Gomez, G-O-M-E-Z, 14457 West 88th Place, Unit A. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I do appreciate the collaboration and the developer having the meetings and talking to us and making some modifications. I do feel that they do not go far enough, though, and especially around the fence. So that's my reason for requesting a disapproval of this plan as is. In your criteria for approval, number 7, you state, to the extent reasonably feasible, the proposal mitigate any potential significant adverse impacts on adjacent properties or on the general community. And we believe, and as you saw for yourself, that split rail fence does nothing to mitigate sound, noise, light, safety, or trash. Those are our biggest concerns. And planting the trees is appreciated, but typically developers will plant saplings or immature trees. And we believe that with the winds, until those trees grow, and even deciduous trees will not protect our properties. Split rail fence, people that want to go over the fence could go over the fence. So I also echo the letters of support. They were from people not in our area, and we just believe that it does nothing for the mitigation of the impact to our community. I believe I am a graduate of Arvada High School. I've lived here many, many years, and I've always looked to Arvada as a progressive city, and I believe that the direction that you give can come up with a better solution. So also the last point I'd like to make in echoing Ms. Wagner's point about the cooperative agreement with the HOA. I knew nothing about it until I saw it in tonight's planning packet. So I believe there was a lack of proactive transparency in this whole project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Sue Thornquist.
Susan Thornquist, Thornquist, 14467 West 88th Place, Unit D.
Thank you.
And I just want to speak a little bit about the fencing issue. I believe that at the meetings, most of the homeowners expressed dissatisfaction with the agreement of a 5-foot split rail fence, believing instead the developer should agree to a minimum 6-foot masonry fence, properly graded, maintained, and landscaped on their property. This would provide segregation between the commercial and the residential community, and we feel this would better protect the integrity of the Whisper Creek Townhome community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, would the applicant like the opportunity to rebut?
So a lot of this is around the fence, and I agree this is very challenging, which is why we walked the site with the HOA. We've had numerous meetings about it. It's why it was somewhat kicked down the road, you know, with every development, and an additional 20-foot landscaping buffer was provided. I can build a 6-foot fence with masonry columns, you know, and I can put it on my property. But what you're not seeing, and I don't know if the best document to look at here, if you guys want to refer to the site plan, maybe in your PDP package, if you guys have that. I'm not sure that I have anything on here that's going to do it justice. So we have a 25-foot drainage easement and drainage swale on our property, basically on this eastern property line. And you can see that on the site plan depicted. And then the city is also requiring a 10-foot utility easement outside of that, which is effectively right on our property line. So if I put a 6-foot fence on my property, it has to go on the other side of that drainage easement, which is effectively 40 feet into my property. And it's a $120,000 fence that I can only run from my property to the edge of the Goddard, because it then will be going through the Goddard's facility. So we can't run it the entire length of the property. And so essentially I'm building a fence to nowhere, you know, that serves no purpose, because the residents will see over top of it. So the HOA gets it. The HOA, we've met, we've walked out of there. In addition, I have a retaining wall, so I can't put a 6-foot fence right up against a retaining wall, because that's a bad idea from drainage, from everything, for all intensive purposes. So it forces us to have to put it on the HOA property. I'm proposing to put it 5 feet into their property. I'm currently paying for the entire fence. It's a 5-foot split rail fence to run the entire length of this property, and I'm fixing this 20-foot landscaping buffer that, you know, is in not good condition right now, and making it established and adding enhanced, you know, landscaping. We propose evergreens, which they're not deciduous trees. We're using mostly evergreens, so no matter what winter condition, they're going to be, you know, mature and full and serve as buffering to the residents. So in order for me to put a 6-foot fence on them on their property that would even be effective, I'd have to go all the way up to a certain grade level and onto their property, which is going to limit their backyard. And then essentially it's on their property. That's why the HOA is agreeing to maintain it. I'm paying to put the entire thing in, establish it, maintain it for 2 years to get it to maturity and or to a point where they can hand it over, and they'll be limited to no maintenance involved. And I'm giving them $10,000 for, you know, long-term maintenance to go, plus turning over the warranty of the fence to them. So the HOA is in agreement. We're all in agreement that this is what makes sense for the area, given the site constraints and the challenges. And with the high winds that come through there, a split rail fence is going to be more forgiving, you know, and withstand the winds than a 6-foot fence that has no room to take winds through it. So I have a signed agreement with the HOA. The reason we worked with the HOA is because it's their property. They own it. And so we've worked with the board of directors. It's my understanding that, you know, they're the representatives and that we're speaking on behalf, and that's where we came to the agreement. And that's how we've settled on that and why we got there. I think distance, I think the enhanced, you know, landscaping, all of that is going to serve as a more than effective, you know, mitigation or landscaping buffer between the two developments. And to confirm with the HOA, I am taking it all the way to 87th Street. The Goddard facility did not want to participate in the overall deal, so to do what was right, I agreed to extend it the entire length and make it look nice. So that's how we ended up with that. As far as the letters of support, you know, there were some letters of support from other Whisper Creek residents. I'm not sure why they didn't make it into the packet. I did see them, but you know, this is this is the city of Arvada. It's not just about the Whisper Creek community. We have Candelas, we have Westwoods, we have Layden Rock, we have Layden Ranch. We have a lot of houses here that are relying on services. And some of the letters of support were from residents that maybe be 16 minutes away, but they commute through here every day, and they're tired of driving 20 minutes to get to services and battling to get in and out of those services because we don't have that many to service the growth that we're experiencing. So we've done our share. I know the fence is not, where they wanted to see it land, but I think given the situation and the constraints, the HOA and we feel that we're doing what's adequate and what's right. I don't think I have any other items to add, so thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll close the public input portion of the hearing and invite members from questions from members of the commission. Mr. Hannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions for staff. The presentation indicates a third neighborhood meeting, and we have no information about that in our packet.
That is correct. What they have done is they've extended it beyond what was required for the first neighborhood meeting. They did do some informal meetings after the second meeting, which what is they're accounting for the third. So we did not get any summary on that. We do have a lot of emails going back and forth, but that was something they did on their own. And it was not required of our application.
Okay. Another question for staff. There seems to be some confusion with the existing development and the fencing or whatever landscaping should have happened.
Yeah, there is, and I've been the planner on this project, and so we developed various PDPs and final development plans through this. And when they originally started, they were looking at it with the overall townhomes, the residential. They platted all these lots, and they came up with the development plans. Subsequently, we kept on amending it, and there has been a lot of challenges with the overall development with Wildgrass, Whisper Creek one, and there were modifications to the development plan going forward. And so the original plans that she was showing that, this is what was required. Then the townhomes came in and we couldn't get it to work. And then also the Goddard School. So there was some flexibility that they were going through the process. So as each plan was going forward, we were amending it. And so those plans came after what was originally approved with filing, the first filing, because it was the overall residential and as well as the overall development for Wildgrass. And so, that is what happened at the townhomes, which was the last filing that was approved before the Goddard School, was rather than putting up a fence, they would prefer to provide a 20-foot buffer strip because they had some challenges with grades and utilities. And at that point, when we did the townhomes, we agreed to that. That was one of the things that Council, Planning Commission and Council flexed. And then when going forward with the commercial, they would be responsible of putting up the fence. Goddard School came in and did their development plan, and rather than putting a fence along that edge, because they were also wanting to have that neighborhood feeling, that they would do their fencing along their playground. So that was what the fence was approved for the PDP for Goddard School. And now now we have a different proposal in terms of completing the full fencing that goes down all the way to Goddard School lot to complete that fencing for the exterior fence for this commercial development.
Excellent, thank you. One more. I got kind of confused about the storage. Throughout our packet, it indicates storage. We're including Lot 3, but we're not really. So I'm just confused about that.
So the situation is, Alicia is a developer for the all 3 lots. She's the overall developer. She has come in, originally they were looking at trying to do all the 3 lots, develop it at the same time with a user as a self-storage. However, they were not ready to go forward when she was going through her application process. However, she's still going to be the developer to put all the infrastructure in, and including the perimeter fence on lot 3. So whoever goes in there, whether it be the self-storage or another commercial user, her intention was to try to lay out the site to meet the requirements of how this commercial area was going to develop. These 3 lots are part of the Wildgrass commercial, and it is a retail commercial center is what we're proposing, what she's proposing. that was also envisioned with a development plan for Wildgrass, Whisper Creek, was this was supposed to be, it started as a 10-acre parcel. Goddard's School went in, but then the other 3 lots was going to develop as commercial. And she is the master developer for these 3 lots. And that's why we are showing the fencing as well as the landscaping, because no matter who goes into Lot 3, that would be her responsibility with her development plan.
Very good. Question for council. If we approve this as written, does that mean that we're agreeing with self-storage on Lot 3?
No. Lot 3 is not a part of the plan, and in fact, the plans have a parenthetical right below the caption, Lot
Right.
3,
Yep.
not a part of PDP.
Okay.
So you're going to see a PDP on that site, and we'll have you'll have the full range of your authorities with respect to
Excellent.
considering that
So
application.
we're not abdicating anything
No.
based on this approval? Excellent, thank you. Question for the applicant. Some comments about deliveries and timing. I'm not really sure I'd want a tractor trailer in my backyard at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, deliveries come and go throughout. I don't have a specific delivery schedule for the overall development, but we're not talking large tractor trailers coming into the lot. They're pretty smaller size vehicles because they do get delivery, daily delivery. They do have a tanker truck that will come in and deliver fuel, obviously, and that's generally not at night, done, during the day, during non-peak hours, and that's once every 3 days that they get that delivery. From a trash truck perspective, the dumpster, enclosures are there. They're significant distance from the residents, and just like they don't control their pickup for their trash, I'm sure it comes at whatever time it comes, they'll have their trash picked up probably every 3 days, twice a week, like they're on their schedule. And I would agree that it's probably going to be the same service that's servicing the residential community, and it'll be around the same time that they get their trash picked up. So.
Excellent. One more while you're up there. On signage, the plan shows no sign on the Starbucks building on the east side.
Yes.
There's some comments that made it seem to think that it was going to be there and it's been removed.
Yeah, that was an oversight on our part at the neighborhood meeting, and Peggy had requested, which was a valid point, to not have any signage on the east side of the elevations, and so we had removed those, and so I'm not sure where the hiccup is on that, but there will be no signage on the 7-Eleven building on the east side or the Starbucks side. So.
Excellent. Okay, the plan does have the coffee goddess who steals my money on the east
Oh,
side
okay.
view.
All right.
So.
Yeah, we'll remove that. So.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this question is either, it could be staff or the applicant. So just based on the fact that United's going to be developing this property, is United going to be the owner-operator?
Well, yes, we're the landlord for both 7-Eleven and Starbucks.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we'll hold it long-term, but we intend to bring it into the portfolio for a while.
So the question I have is specifically around the fence. And if the fence is on your property, why would it be up to the HOA to maintain it?
Because it's on the HOA's property.
It is on the HOA's property, so
Yeah.
the $10,000 is contributed for any future.
Right.
And then
Costs that they're going to incur, and help minimize the impact of, maintenance.
does that property pay HOA fees, or is that strictly for the residential component?
It's on the residential property. It's it's owned by the HOA.
Okay.
It's that additional 20-foot landscaping buffer that Remington gave in lieu of doing the fence.
Okay. So, and then another question specific to the property. If United owns it and operates it, or if you end up selling it, is it the property owners, are they the ones who should be maintaining all the grasses, the trees on the property?
So Starbucks will maintain their, own internal landscaping, and 7-Eleven will maintain theirs, and then the future, whatever develops on Lot 3 will maintain theirs. But the United Properties will maintain that 20-foot landscaping buffer for the 2-year commitment, ensure that it gets established, and then turn it over to the HOA.
So that'll be really clear as to who's going to be responsible for the trees and the grass. The reason I ask is you mentioned the Westwoods a couple times in here. And I said the property is 64th and Quaker and Westwoods. It's kind of similar to this. You have a gas station and other, but most of the trees are dead, and most of the grass grew to 3 feet tall over the summer with nobody maintaining those. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, 7-Eleven has some pretty good, standards and what they require. I don't know if you've been past the 44th and McIntyre and Golden over there, their new facility. They do a generally good job, and Starbucks does a great job as well in maintaining and care about the properties. We're doing like all rock, so limited landscape maintenance really. With vegetation. So I think, there's a 1-year warranty on the trees that I provide, and so if they die, I have to replace them, and then they're responsible for maintaining them from there. So.
Okay. Now, one other question. I believe I understand what a 5-foot or 6-foot split rail fence. Could you clarify for the folks here what a split rail fence will look like?
Yeah, the detail is included in our agreement with the HOA, but it's shown right there on the right, and it matches the existing 5-foot split rail fence that was installed across 87th Street, so south of this site, if they want to get a real live look of what that's going to look like.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Thank you, Chairman Owens. So a question for the applicant. I noticed when I visited the site that the elevation changes from west to east, maybe 15, 20 feet?
Yes.
So give me a sense of what is the elevation at the base of the 7-Eleven, at the top of that drainage area, and then at the base of a townhome that sits closest to.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Just estimates. I mean, I think
I actually have.
you had an elevation cutaway that showed the site in your.
Yeah. So.
Could you put that up in? I think it's in your. I thought that
Yeah.
was a good way to maybe show where the fence would be and.
Yeah.
There
right
we go.
Here. So if we kind of move left to right, if you will, or I'm thinking it's your left to right on your
West to
side.
east.
Indiana Street is at what we call 5632, so let's just say 32. Elevation, finished floor elevation. The Starbucks is at a 30, so it's basically 2 feet below Indiana. 7-Eleven is at a 27, but keep in mind Indiana is like falling at that point, so it's effectively about 3 feet below Indiana as well. And then you're at about 5618 on lot 3, so you're basically, what is that, 12 feet below Indiana at that point, 12 to 14 feet below Indiana. And then the finished floor elevation for that northernmost building is 5623. So you're about 10 feet really below, Indiana at that. And the property line, you're at 5619. So that's where because that's where the drainage swale comes through and captures all of the drainage to take it to the head wall down there by the Goddard and off to regional detention. So I don't know if that answers what you were.
Well, and then the townhomes sit another, 10 feet above the highest point of this property?
Yeah. So grades in itself, I mean, it falls and then it goes back up.
Right.
So, we're dealing with the fall, and we have a retaining wall proposed. You can see there about a 3-foot retaining wall between the Starbucks and lot 3 to kind of also, again, the self-storage is not part of this PDP, and you're not approving that tonight, but that's just to try to really drive that down as much as you possibly can. So in addition to dealing with the extensive fall that we have across the property.
So the fence is going to sit no matter what, 5-foot, 6-foot wood, masonry.
Yeah.
The top of that fence is going to sit below the elevation of any of those.
Correct.
The base of those townhomes.
Correct.
Okay. A question for your traffic engineer, unless you can answer it, about the.
Well, shoot, and then I'll probably defer to him. Why don't you come up here, Mike? 'Cause
Okay.
you're way more technical than me. It depends on how technical you're going to get.
So a question, one of the flex items being requested is from 4 pumps to 6. And did your traffic study, even though you've got mostly pass-through traffic, does the increase in the number of pumps change the traffic estimates? And did your traffic study assume the 6 pumps, or the 4 that would be standard for City of Arvada ordinance?
So, excuse me, good evening. My name is Mike Rocha. I'm with SM Rocha LLC.
Thank you.
We're traffic and transportation consultants located at 8703 Yates Drive, Westminster, 80031.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, there's 2 parts. So the number of pumps equates to fueling positions, which the more pumps you have, the more traffic. So it's all related. What we did is we anticipated the higher, so the 6 pumps or the 12 fueling positions within our traffic impact study. That was reviewed and approved by staff.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you. So just another question I have for staff. So one last one. Thank you, Chairman. A question when I visited the site, and I've not heard any comments or seen in any of the reports, there are prairie dogs that live on this site, and there are a number of burrows that are there. And my understanding is the city doesn't have an ordinance or regulations about prairie dogs. Is that correct?
We don't have a regulation per se. There's a policy. It relates really to city-owned property,
Okay.
moving or dealing with prairie dogs on city property. There are 2 sites, I believe, designated. One's at Long Lakes, and another is a utilities-owned parcel that the city uses to relocate from city parks when prairie dog colonies expand beyond, what's advisable. They're available when there is capacity for private landowners to, should they desire to attempt to relocate prairie dogs. My understanding is those 2 sites are definitely at capacity now. Otherwise, my understanding of the law, state law, is that where prairie dogs do damage to privately owned properties, they're not a protected species. They're not to be confused with black-footed ferrets, for
Not
example.
threatened or endangered.
Right. And the law does allow for, extermination of prairie dogs, for example, or relocation with a permit from Parks and Wildlife, I believe.
Okay. So I know just my understanding of the policy that it's been difficult for private property owners and even municipalities to move prairie dogs. You have to actually have the facility accept them and allow them. I would just encourage the developer to possibly Rocky Flats National Wildlife Refuge is just miles away and contact or at least pursue efforts to relocate the prairie dogs possibly to with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that would manage the refuge. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Connell.
Just on a practical point, since there are 2 entities and not knowing for the third, is there some type of an agreement for as far as maintenance, snow removal, things like that, and in reference to the trees and snow removal?
Yeah, I mean, there is, in each of their lease, each tenant has the obligation to maintain and handle what's on their particular lot, but there's a common access and declaration that's existing one that's being amended with the Goddard facility to establish for the common access areas and to handle and to deal with snow removal and cross access and all of that type of stuff and who's responsible for what.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Reimer. Just so that I'm clear, you're currently not planning any signage on the east side of any of these buildings?
Correct, yes.
So if we were to make it a condition of approval that you not have any signage on the east side of the buildings, that wouldn't create any kind of hardship on you then?
No, as long as we're talking about building signage, I just want to make sure, I'm not sure the order board and the menu board for Starbucks is going to be on the east side of their building. So we would just need to be specific.
Absolutely.
If we're talking on the actual building itself, I don't think there would be any issues with making that a condition.
And are you planning any signage on the east side of the canopy 7-Eleven?
No, I do not believe. The two signs will be, one will be on the west elevation and one will be on the south, or probably south and north, but nothing on the east side.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If there are no further questions, the chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Hannon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that PDP 2017-003 Wild Grass Commercial Figure 1 Preliminary Development Plan located at 14753 West 87th Parkway be recommended to City Council for approval based on the conditions stated in the staff report, item 1, page 10. This motion is based on the findings of fact and approval criteria on pages 8, 9, and 10 of the staff report.
Thank you. And Mr. Hannon, would you accept an amendment to include as a condition that we would have no signage on the east side of any, mounted to the east side of any buildings, including the canopy?
Yeah, the PDP does not include that in the written. It was just in comments, so I'm not really sure it's necessary, but I would
agree.
be happy to have that.
I'm hoping to provide some certainty for the
Sure.
neighborhood that we wouldn't do that. Okay, so we'll have discussion of the motion and the amendment. Mr. McGee.
Thank you, Chairman Owens. I want to just thank the developer. I think they did a commendable job, and one of the residents made the comment as well that they did a good job trying to work with the neighborhood. A number of meetings, more meetings than were required, and obviously the view corridor issue that seemed to be one that was an issue in the beginning, it seems to have been resolved because I heard nothing about impact to the view corridors, so I think you've done a good job with site design, the traffic issues, and those kind of things, and I will be supporting this proposal.
Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Agree. I think the site design and looking at the traffic patterns and minimize the issues related to that, it does look like a good plan. I will also be voting in approval as well as the conditions of approval that have been added. The condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. I think I'm going to support this motion, and but I think it's important that we heard the neighborhood in what they were saying. I went out, I looked at the area. I think this is a tough problem, and I don't believe that a masonry fence another 40 feet back is the right answer to solve this problem. I think that in fact may exacerbate the problem because it gives more room for big weeds and bigger maintenance issues that I think will be in people's backyard in the long run. Also, I think that cutting off the fence at the Goddard property instead of continuing the fence through won't visually look good for your neighborhood. So my opinion, and I appreciate everyone that came out, and clearly I don't live in your neighborhood, but I believe that having this continuous fence in a place that's easier to maintain is a better solution in the long run. So I'll be supporting this motion as it is. Ms. Connell?
I would agree with what has just been said. I would add, though, that it appears that a lot of time and effort was applied, and I understand what the people who live in the area are saying, but it appears that, again, as I say, it seems like a lot went into this to try to mitigate some problems.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, all members please vote. Oh, sorry. Now, please. Mr. McGee, I didn't get yours. Thank you. All right, we have 5 yeses and 0 nos. So that motion passes. Good luck with your project. Staff, are there any other items for the commission to consider this evening?
Yes, your next meeting will be September 19th, and there will be 2 items on that agenda. One is the Nance Properties Preliminary Development Plan, and that is at 14753 West 80, that's not the correct address. It's in the Parkway Business Center. Sorry, wrong address here. And then there's a comprehensive plan amendment before you regarding the bicycle master plan.
Thank you very much. All right, we're adjourned.